Hello, hello, and welcome everyone to East African Daily. This is Jean-Paul Turaishimie, your host today. I am joined today by, I'm sorry. I am joined today by a fellow countryman from New York. His name is Celestin Sengiyumva. He doesn't need much introduction. For some reason, something is playing in the background. I just don't know what's going on. Just give me a second so I can adjust. I can fix this. I think it has stopped. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I do hear you.
Something was playing in the background that interfered with my. Something is playing in the background. I do believe that maybe two Zoom or two screens are open at the same time. So I'm trying to fix it if it's coming from my end. Can you hear me?
Yes, I do hear you.
There is an echo in the background, so I'm not sure this is on my end. Hopefully, this is going to be resolved. Do you have two screens open at the same time?
No, I have just one screen open.
Two screens are open at the same time, so I'm trying to fix it if it's coming from my end. Could be mine. It could be mine, and I'm afraid
Yes, I do hear you.
there is an echo in the background, so I'm not sure this is on my end. Hopefully, this is. Hopefully that is. Yeah, but I hear myself repeating myself several times. So I mean,
just
one stream. Let me see whether that's coming from this end. And I'm afraid there is an echo in the background. So I'm not sure this is on my end. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I do.
Okay, now that has stopped.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was on my end. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, and in Buffalo, New York. And,
happy to have you on. Happy to have you on my show.
Thank you very much for inviting
me. This was a long,
also
long
to join you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very happy. The pleasure is mine. So this was arranged. This was planned after multiple requests. Several people have asked me to plan on having an English show because most of the time we're talking between ourselves. We are reaching out to people who speak in Rwanda, and there is a probably much bigger audience that speak English that do not actually get the benefit to hear what's going on in Rwanda because they speak English. So some of my audience suggested that it would be a good idea to have an English program. And I must tell you that even though I did have some English program before in the past, on this channel, you're the first invitee, you're the first person to come on the show live with me. So thank you so much. I'm honored.
I'm pleased to join you on this channel in English, and it is my pleasure. It is good. It is a good idea to speak to our people, to inform them in Kinyarwanda, but it is also important to speak to the outer world, to people who speak English. As you know, English is the global language. It is the dominant language. When you want to inform the world about the plight of whatever you want to cover, you need to address them either in English or in French or both.
And also there is another reason, not only that, but also even though I agree with everything you've said, so there is another big reason why we should have at least maybe once in a while, not once in a while, maybe once a week or maybe once in 2 weeks, these kind of programs, because Rwanda is considered an ally of English-speaking countries such as United Kingdom, United States of America, and he receives a lot of money, lots of aid from them, and part of the requirement or what they ask him to do is to have or to run a democratic country, a democratic government. And you and I know that that's not the case in Rwanda, even though it does have all three branches of government. suggesting that they are a democratic country, but it is not a democratic in actual sense. They have a justice system, they have a judicial system, they have the judiciary branch, they have a Congress or parliament, how they call it. They have an executive branch run by Kagame. But to be honest with you, other than just having those separated powers in the name, just in the name only, but to me, that is not a democratic government, except that it has a structure that looks like a democratic government, but it's not. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree. And it is quite unfortunate in our country. The executive branch has dwarfed all the others. The executive branch does get, they indulge in interfering in the other branches' domains. And for that reason, the government of Rwanda cannot claim to be a democratic government for many reasons. Because when the executive branch interferes with the work of the judiciary, especially, it means that the judiciary cannot be independent, which means that the courts of Rwanda would be unable to judge according to law, but they render a judgment according to the wishes of the executive branch. In the same vein, the legislative branch, the MPs, the parliament, also, it is there to approve and to applaud the whims of the president, and that is not democratic governance. And as long as that situation persists, our country cannot claim to be a democratic government. And when you have a country which is not democratic in this century, it is a very serious matter of concern.
And there is a name for that kind of parliament that is there just to approve. That is there just to approve whatever the executive branch want them to approve without even debate, and they call them rubber stamps.
Rubber stamp, yes, they just
parliamentarian system, which is what we have in Rwanda. And you did say that for many reasons why we should not call Rwandan government a democratic. One of those reasons, it is elections. In a democratic country, they do have legitimate elections, and these. It is a shame election. This is not a considered. Rwanda is not considered a country that run legitimate elections. But for example, I was about to speak in French. For example, last election that we remember of that took place in 2017, the president Kagame said he was elected by a whopping 99% of the people. So. And maybe let me start by asking you this before we go even to your, I'm about to introduce you formally, but before we get there, Celeste, how do you explain that the Western world, the countries such as UK, America, members of the European Union, congratulate a president that was elected by 99% of the vote? How do you congratulate such a president? And after putting in jail people like Diana Rwigara who tried to run against him and didn't unsuccessfully, and also another candidate has fled the country, Mwenedata, and others were killed or fled. So how do you congratulate such election? How do you explain that?
JP, I'm really concerned that the Western powers, who are the main sponsors of the government of Rwanda,
yes,
when they congratulate the winner of a sham election, it is a subject for much concern, because such an election would not be tolerated in France, in Belgium, in UK, in America. But I think they just close their eyes, they look the other way, because they have vested interests, national or strategic, in having a government such as the one we have in Rwanda, because of the natural resources of our Western neighbor, Democratic Republic of Congo. That is the only way to account for it. But I want to add, JP, I want to add that when the spokespersons or the government of Rwanda claims to be a stable government, it is ridiculous. A stable government is a government which can accept handing over power to whoever is elected in a free and fair election. A government which cannot organize a free and fair election is an unstable government. Unstable. Today, as we speak, we don't know who is going to take over from President Kagame, who cannot be in power forever.
No one knows.
Perhaps he would like to be in power until such a time when he will even be unable to do whatever he needs to do. But he's a human. He's subject to aging phenomenon. His government, all the statement, all his promises, they have suffered a lot of erosion, and they have been voided by the test of time. So that is the stability we have. We have an unstable government, which is also insecure. It is the reason why
it is stable because it is a police state government. That's the only reason why it's stable, because everything is controlled by the state, and then police in every corner of the street, and every movement, every conversation, everything that everybody, I mean, Rwandan people do, it is controlled by the government. No one has a say except for the government. So the government is stable in that regard.
No, it is not stable. It is strong, but not stable.
Well, yeah, I agree. So Celeste, there was a problem in connecting to my YouTube. That's why I did not introduce you to my viewers, to our viewers. There are people who may not know you. I know you. We have met, you and I know your background. But give me just a few seconds, and then introduce you to my viewers so they know your background and where you come from. So to my viewers, and I want to welcome you again and thank you for joining us on this program. So I am with Celestin Sengiyumva today. So he has a very extensive background. He's a former journalist on Radio Rwanda. He was on the French desk. He was sitting on a French desk at Radio Rwanda. He's a former director in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also in the office of the president. I must clarify that it's the office of former president, not President Kagame, the former president Habyarimana. And he was doubling as personal interpreter to President Habyarimana, and also a former diplomat at the embassy in Addis Ababa. So that is in Ethiopia, obviously. He was tasked in particular to follow up the Rwanda peace process, because a refugee following the collapse. Following the collapse of the government in July 1994, because of the collapse of the government. That was a typo here. So because of the refugee following collapse of the government in 1994. So he's now, as he did say when we started our program, he's now in Buffalo, New York State. He has been working with refugees from the African Great Lakes region as a community interpreter and cultural mediator. He has authored four 4 books. Congratulations, Celeste. And
very much.
all those books talked about crisis in Africa and Great Lakes region. So Rwandan, the first one is the Rwandan conflict. Have we reached the dead end in 2016? The second one is, I'm not sure you have them, maybe you can show them the book if you have them right now. Maybe, as I said, I mentioned the books. If you have all of them, that would be great. So they see your books. That's the first one. Now I can see, yeah, no, yeah, lower, a little lower, the right, a little bit up, just a little bit, up, a little bit, very good. Up a little bit, right there, that's good. So that is the first book, Rwandan Conflict, Have We Reached the Dead End? And the second book, merci, thank you very much. The second one is African Great Lakes Country from Independence to Deception and Instability. That's the second book. Thank you. We can see it clearly. That's good. That's the second book. And the third is African Great Lakes region, The Long Trail of Refugee to America, and all in English. And fourth, the Rwandan Invasion, Liberation. Let me see. We can see that. The fourth is the Rwandan Invasion, Liberation, et Occupation. This is the book. This is the fourth book in French. So that's the fourth book that is in French. Thank you very much. So the books, all the books are available on Amazon. So he said, this is, I quote from his writing, said, I invite you all to read these books to get an insight of the root causes behind the endless feud between peoples and countries of a region, and the role played by former colonial powers during colonial era and the mature post-independence leaders. Thank you very much. As I said, I warned you that he has an extensive background and he's a writer. We don't have that many in our country. So again, Celeste, thank you. We did a few housekeeping before we start this program, and I can tell you, I can promise you that it's not going to be a long show. It's going to be brief, but because it's the first one, and it's going to be topic specific. Yes, we may touch on the situation at Great Lakes, whatever is happening, but today I invite you so we can talk about the death of the journalist Ntwali Williams, or Ntwali, John Williams Ntwali. Yes, we may speak I may touch on a few other areas, but that is my focus today, and that's the reason why I invited you. And even though we did talk briefly about a few other things, but that is the main reason why we are here today. Again, and thank you so very much. So Celeste, without delay, I want to talk about Ntwali's death. Some people call it a death, mysterious death. Others, they call it an accident. I know that I will never describe it as a mysterious death, because I know what happened. There are too many mysterious deaths of that nature that makes me believe that I have a strong belief he was killed by the government. That is my view. You'll tell us what you think, but the government, when they ask the government to investigate the death of Ntwali, John Williams, they are offended. So if they have nothing to do with his death, why are they offended by the independent investigation? And what do you say? What do you say about that, Mr. Celestin?
Jean-Paul, I did not believe the version which was presented by Rwanda government authorities, for many reasons. One of those reasons is that there was no picture of that accident. The other point is that first it was announced that the accident was...
You just before you go there, you just raised a very important point that we never covered. We never talked about it. There is no scene of the accident. Not even a police line do not cross, because it's an accident where somebody died. You know, we never talked about that.
Yeah, and the other thing is that they announced that the accident had taken place at a place called Rwanda. And then another announcement said it happened at Kimihurura or at another location.
Yes, it's Kimihurura. The initial reports suggested it was Kimihurura. You're right.
And as the same, we all know, Jean-Paul, we all know that the same accident cannot happen at these two different locations. That is impossible.
Especially when they said he died instantly. So
yes,
that's not a possibility. Yes.
The other point of concern is that the police claimed that they did not recognize such a popular man.
I know.
If you meet Jean-Paul, if you meet the Pope today and claim that you did not know that it was the Pope.
Yeah. By the way, by looking at the picture after his death, you can see that his face was not deformed to the point where he cannot be recognized.
And as you know, in an accident, the face is the first part of a human body to be impacted.
Especially on a motorcycle.
On a motorbike.
Yeah.
And but we also know that the embarrassed statement of the government, it was not the first extrajudicial death in Rwanda. We know many of those. I mean, we know quite a number of those, including the death of young Kizito, including the death of Tycoon Rwigara, including the death of one young Rwabukamba. I knew Rwabukamba personally. I knew even his family, his father. And his death was not really, the account of his death was unpalatable, absolutely unacceptable. And so our government is...
You can also include the death of the personal doctor, Kagame's personal doctor, his personal doctor who was reportedly killed when he wanted to wrest a gun from a guard. A doctor never does this kind of behavior, never. He was in handcuff too.
And especially when you are handcuffed, how can you? So
handcuffed and also actually chains on his legs. So not just handcuffed.
And
on chain.
And now the government is responding with acrimonious comments when people ask for an independent investigation. You know, when you don't have anything to hide, why do you reject an investigation?
Exactly, that's the point.
Now, we are told that Rwanda police is a professional police, but this kind of account of an accident does not look professional at all. In addition to that, Rwanda being a third world country, if they wanted to be transparent, they can recognize that they don't have all the tools needed to make a professional investigation. I mean, technical tools or even professional, because they have lots of professional insufficiencies, shortcomings.
Yeah.
So the death of Ntwali, John William, looks like an extrajudicial killing, and only the government of Rwanda would be to blame for this killing, because this young man did not commit suicide. And I understand they even tried to prevent people from viewing his dead body. And so they are embarrassed, but these people, they never look embarrassed. They claim that, we need to accept their account of events as said. But we are inquisitive. We want to know more. Let them allow investigation. That is what I would say on the death of the unfortunate and untimely death of John William Ntwali, who was giving voice to the voiceless, and now the voiceless have nobody to speak for them.
Which is a contradiction. If you look at it, why would you, if you're a government, why would you be against, or would be against someone news or reports that are coming from the people who are telling their story? I would assume that if I was the government, I would want to know what's going on in, in the lives of those people. But not only that, Ntwali John Williams, because I tend to forget that this is an English program, so even though I've been talking about this forever on my other programs, Kinyarwanda programs, but for those who may hear this for the very first time, John Ntwali Williams was an investigative journalist. He was considered, not just considered, he was really an investigative journalist, and he investigated government corruption. That is one of the area, the editorial, that the government of Rwanda does not want to expose. They don't want anyone to say that it's a government that is a corrupt government, because the Transparency International, which is run by an RPF, the Front Patriotic Front, Rwandan Patriotic Front member, who attends Bureau Politique of the political party in power. So he's a member. They only let go those corruption. They lay out the corruption that they want to let out, because they don't want to say that they're 100% corruption free. So they only say, okay, we're only 10% corrupt. Compared to other African nations, we are number one. We are number one, transparent and no corruption with the government. So Ntwali John Williams was exposing those lies. And in my opinion, that is a big threat to the government of Rwanda. Do you agree?
Yes, I fully agree, because but I have heard many reports from Ntwali. He reported about the unfair treatment of the people who lived in that neighborhood called Kangondo.
Yep.
In Kigali.
The forced eviction by the government. The forced
eviction of people who were thrown out without due process, without, and the rule of law did not even want to apply to this case. People were forced to sign and accept a compensation which was well below the value of their property.
In many cases, not even that compensation, because they had to shift, to send them, to relocate them to a different neighborhood, but they didn't want to go there. So that is not what the Constitution says.
No, that's the problem.
If you're taking someone's property, there is a procedure that must be followed. Mm-hmm. It's not just that you are giving them a roof over their head. That's not enough, because
it is. And when the government is seen to be unjust, to be unfair, and to be oppressing poor people, this is not a popular government. You cannot turn around and claim that this government was elected, as you said in the beginning, close to 100%. Who can elect such a government? A fair election would vote them out of office as soon as a free and fair election is organized. And in view of such a situation, we, the people of Rwanda, we are in a desperate situation. We need, I don't know who is going to help us, but at least we need a government which would come out of a process, a free political process, and from a free and fair election, instead of a government which claims to be elected at the rate of 98 point something percent. In a country
you're trying to be very fair to them. It wasn't 99, because that was like 98.9 something. It was just to 99, please close to 100. If I say 100%, that would be also accurate representation, actually.
Jean Paul, this country on every hill, every cell, every neighborhood of Rwanda has lost a member of the family at the hand of the government, which is now in power in Rwanda. That is, and every member of the Tutsi community people know that the troops which claim to have stopped the genocide, they all know that these troops did not endeavor to save any ethnic Tutsi. They just rushed into capturing power. And when they announced that the genocide had stopped because the genocidaire had fled to Congo, all of them. That's how it was stopped, actually. So, Jean-Paul, Rwanda deserves much better than what we have today.
Way better. And you did mention about the help. You don't know where the help is going to come from, but this is exactly the point, the reason why we are having this show. We are not addressing the Rwandan community. We are addressing the foreigners. We are addressing Americans. Foreigners for Rwandan. So they're not foreigners to me, but they are foreigners to Rwandans. So we are addressing the US, we are addressing the United Kingdom, we are addressing the European world, we are addressing the Canadian world, because there's something crucial that you mentioned, what they call stability. They don't want to disturb the government because they have somebody who's in power since 30 years. And to them, that is assuring. They call them allies. They call Rwandan government an ally of the United States of America. So, but the alliance, I think that is really something that you should be distancing yourself with, even not today, because of what is taking place in Congo. They're trying their best. But with these reports, Sengiyumva, you know that the death of Ntwali is going to come up in State Department reports. Every year they have this report that comes up, human rights report, State Department human rights report every year. And Rwanda, it is always, I read them all the time. At least if I can't read the entire report, I read the summary of it. Every year I read them. It is damning. It is a bad report on Rwanda. But that does not prevent the United States to give them money to support and fund that government that we know, you and I know, that it cannot really stand on its feet without those funds. And when they teach people about democracy, justice, rule of law, that's why some people are skeptical. They said, no, they are after their own interest. They don't care really about democracy in Africa. They only care about their allies. What can you tell them that will make Africans like myself and you change their mind on them and say, you know what, when they say democracy, they mean democracy, because they can't even withhold aid.
Jean Paul, well, I think I wrote about that in one of my books. I would like our Western friends, like Americans,
allies,
Britons, and others.
Yeah.
I would want them to make a difference between the government of Rwanda and the people of Rwanda. They should befriend more the people than the government. And if they do that, that would encourage the government to perform better in terms of democratic governance. Because if you make a difference between the people and the government. For example, this Western government could fund, not withhold money to the impoverished peoples of Rwanda and also the people of the African Great Lakes region in general, they could use NGOs instead of using government-to-government channels.
Exactly.
To fund projects like water, agriculture. This is one way.
And they have USAID that could achieve that.
USAID could do that. And the other way around would be to explain, as we are doing now, to explain to them that whatever they want President Kagame to do for them, that is, to facilitate their access to the natural resources of Congo, they can have that in another way, which does not oppress the people of Rwanda. And the oppression to the people of Rwanda does also impact the people and the government of the entire region. And I would also encourage all African governments, all countries, including the countries of neighboring Rwanda and all the countries of the African Great Lakes region, to consider demanding to have a say in each other's political processes, to see to it that all these processes happen smoothly, because when they don't, all these countries are doomed to receive refugees running away.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that. That is what I can say to you.
That is my wish. That is my wish. Because look, JP. If
it is a wishful thinking, because who's going to say that? Who's going to say that? That you know.
There have been such a talk in the 80s.
Maybe Tshisekedi will. Maybe President Tshisekedi will. But who else do you think will say that?
Jean-Paul, remember? Have you ever heard about what they call the humanitarian interference?
No. I can understand the word and what it means, but I never heard of it. Yeah, that means something different.
That was part of the speech of President François Mitterrand.
Okay.
In the 90s, the early 90s, that where there is there are humanitarian crises, then the international community has a right to come in, not only to help, but also to redress, to see to it that bad governance, which is the root cause of humanitarian crisis, is uprooted.
Let me tell you. I'm sorry to interrupt, but remember when the genocide, 1994, during the genocide, when it was taking place, remember the debate that took forever in the U.S. Senate? Do you know why? Because there is those kind of rules. They say, if we call it genocide, then we must intervene. So, and the debate went on and went on because they didn't want to get involved. They don't want to do anything. No humanitarian, nothing. They don't want to do anything. They don't care.
It is because they wanted RPF to take over. They didn't want to prevent RPF takeover.
Well, they could have stopped. They could have helped them from the background and still prevent atrocities from happening. If they wanted to, they come from behind. I don't know.
They wanted the RPF to take over so that they can do the dirty job they wanted them to do in Congo.
But I don't know how that will help somebody to be associated with such a thing. I think if assuming that you are right, that is exactly what they wanted to do. That is a miscalculation on their part, because that is not a good thing. You don't want to be associated with such a thing. I don't think anyone wants.
What happened at that time? As I told you, I was in the embassy in Addis Ababa. We had been discussing all these things, and the Westerners. That was the time when the mobile phone industries was a nascent industry. It was a baby industry.
Yes,
and they needed this coltan in large quantities, not on commercial terms. The issue with our region is that the Western industries, high-tech industries, The issue is that they need the resources from Congo on non-commercial basis, and they need somebody who would want to accept to do the dirty job. And that's why they protect the president of Rwanda, because they don't want him to go public and say things
spill the beans,
which would embarrass them, especially embarrass them during electoral years.
So let me ask you something.
Some Western government would lose power if the truth was told.
But the power, none of the Western world remain in power forever. In France, they remain the maximum that I've seen. This is the first president, Macron, who was elected twice in a long history. I mean, I think every president in France, at least the recent history that we know, was only elected for 4 years or maybe 5, and he was never won a re-election. Maybe before Mitterrand, I don't remember exactly. I'm not an expert in government or maybe the history of France, but this is the first president who was elected twice in a long history. So let me ask you, America, since Kagame took power, how many presidents have gone, so how many presidents so far that have left power? Bush, Clinton, Obama,
Trump.
And all of them, they won 2 terms in the office, which means 8 times those presidents that you just said, 20 something. So what are they afraid of? They'll lose power. They're gonna get they're going to get voted out anyways. So that is, I don't think that will be the question, but I may ask you something similar to that, because I know when the genocide took place in 1994, in Rwanda, we had the Minuar. We had Minuar, the UN forces led by Romeo Dallaire, right? And I agree with you, by the way, to an extent, because Romeo Dallaire never condemned. He's now a buddy. He's a buddy with the President Kagame. He's praising him. He knows the history. He knows the what Kagame does and what he has done. But still, he considered Kagame like a good leader or a visionary leader, as they call him. But that's a different topic of another day. So let's go to Congo right now. They have MONUSCO forever in Congo. Everything that is today, the atrocity that is taking place, it is only reduced to condemnation, statements. We condemn the violence. We should allow peace in Congo to thrive, and the stuff that we are used to. But really, 20 plus years, Rwanda, meanwhile, Congo, MONUSCO, and the international community, they continue to renew their mandate every year. So what can you say that, why do you think they never learn a lesson from the past and they're doing the same thing over and over again?
Jean-Paul, you certainly know that Dallaire, this Canadian general, I'm sorry, he had a mission within a mission.
I don't know that, but I want to hear it.
He had a mission inside the UNAMIR mission. And the same goes for MONUSCO. MONUSCO is composed of different contingents from different countries. And they have their arms tied behind their back. They don't have an offensive mandate. They are an observer and assistance mission only. So the atrocities which are being committed in Congo, it is the duty of the government of Congo to manage that situation. And MONUSCO will only observe and assist. It means that they can lend them their helicopters to evacuate wounded soldiers, injured soldiers. They can give them their drones to supply some information, not all the information. So it is, well, that is the MONUSCO. For Dallaire, Dallaire had come to preside over the transfer of power. And he behaved perfectly in the as such. And as you know, he claimed that he had shaken the hand of the devil. But that devil...
I think you should have said that I shook hand with the two devils. Multiple devils.
But to sum up, these people, whether UNAMIR or Dallaire or MONUSCO, they have no lesson to teach us, Jean-Paul.
Right.
We have seen them how they
in action.
They came just to observe and to make statements, empty statements. But now we need to address their senders, those who sent them. That is the government of America, the government of Great Britain, the government of France, Western government in general, because they are the ones who constitute they named themselves to be the international community.
And they are, I can call them, I'll give them another name. They are enablers. They enable.
The enablers. They are the ones who, they are the enablers of the crisis we have in the region.
Yes.
As you know, had they not been enabling the president of Rwanda to stay on, he would not have been in power for almost 30 years.
Or maybe been in power for 30 years without killing so many people, without committing all these crimes and oppressing people.
Jean-Paul, the way he took over is a threat against his internal conscience and security. So he's doomed to continue killing us. And if they continue to support him, if they continue to enable him, you understand? So
yeah, of course, and then it's gonna backfire on them too, by the way.
So we need to appeal to them that please let the people of Rwanda, the people of Congo, the people, also in Congo, the Congolese don't elect their leaders. They get their leaders from a kind of consensus among these Western powers.
Is that true, though?
Yes, yes. We know that Mobutu was in power for 32 years.
Yes, Mobutu, that was a long time ago, but yes.
Yes, and then after Mobutu, you remember that guy who was not even sacked, he was terminated because he had started looking east. He wanted to have allies from the east.
Are you speaking about Kasavubu?
No, Laurent Désiré Kabila.
Oh, you mean Laurent Désiré? Yeah, he was killed. He was
assassinated. He was terminated.
He was assassinated by Rwanda. Well, Rwanda was heavily involved. I remember that.
And you don't assassinate a leader to replace him by his son. And that is there is a lie in that thing. And when Kabila was unable to continue because he wanted to continue, the protest on the streets of Kinshasa were not allowing him to continue. Then he kind of appointed.
But do you think it was because of the protest or because for other reason? Because I don't think there are protests everywhere, but they don't really.
There were too many dead in the streets of Kinshasa, that one. But two, he was also an ally of China. He had been trained there in China. He had given them mining concessions in Congo. And the Westerners did not like it. So
but he was also a friend of the West too.
Less than
he had a few lobbyist companies are trying to get some here in the United States.
When you are in power in those countries, you fill your accounts with the dollar money. You don't want yuan renminbi. So but for example, there is kind of confidential information that he sold uranium to Iran.
Really? Is that reliable? Is it true? or it's just maybe speculation?
It is very likely. It is very likely because
Well, that would be a kiss of death if
that's it. That's it. And then I think that information even came from Dar es Salaam. There was a container
really
in the harbor of Dar es Salaam containing such material, and the Iranians are very present in Tanzania. You know that they are also riparians of the Indian Ocean, the Iranians and Tanzanians. The boats, they are boats going to and fro. And when you in Zanzibar, the party in power was called Afro Shirazi. When you hear Shirazi, Shirazi means the Iranians. It was the party which
I did not know that.
So,
but I agree that if that was the case, that would be a huge mistake. I would think for someone who is a member of the United Nations, a member of like a friend of the US, or somebody who do business with the Western world, to deal with not only diplomatic relations. It's not an issue, but those Iranian, that would be a terrible mistake.
That's why in some of my books we have immature leaders. This was a young man. He became president and general when he was 29 years. 29. Have you ever seen a general of 29 years?
No. I remember when he was a captain in when the war started, when they were when Rwanda supported them. So he was very young.
You don't become a general.
Became a general from
29 years.
Yeah.
You would be unable to reason, to think
rationally. That it's there is a deficiency. So let me ask you one more thing, because I'm going to wrap up. We're going to end the conversation about 10 minutes, but the war in Congo, I'm going to talk. This is the last point, because we're going to continue, and you accepted that we're going to continue this conversation. So, and then more people that to join us. But this is the campaign that we need to do. Our American friends, I work with a lot of them. Some of them, they don't really know what is going on. They think, some of them used to think that Kagame is a great leader. Exactly what they read in newspaper. So they don't know who he is, but now they're starting to know who he is, not because of me, because of all these problems that that's a different story. So now we have this war in Congo. He has invaded Congo. Of course, the difference between him and Russia and Putin is because he never said that I am going to attack you, I'm going to invade you, even though he did say that, but he never said that he's doing it. But you and I know that they did it. And I have information, even most recent information, that they just sent 3,000 special forces, special operation forces to Rwanda, because they already have the territory. They occupy their neighbors, the DRC. But United States or the Western world, they really responded furiously when it came to Ukraine and Russia because of this invasion in Ukraine. But Rwanda, even though they have the satellite to show that Rwanda is involved, is invading Congo, they know that. But the response by these Western countries is really, to me, hypocritical. This is double standard. You can say this about Ukraine and be silent to this extent in Congo. There are, yes, I understand one is in Europe, another in Africa, but honestly speaking, they should do more than just saying, oh, we want dialogue, people should see it, people should do this. That is a double standard, because that's not what they're saying in Ukraine. They are supporting people to defend themselves, which they should support Congo. They are sending tanks even now, every nation in the West. So let me not talk about the war in you can. That's not what I want to say. But now, the East African community, who is a member, whose Congo is a member of the East African community, just became a member recently. They never issued a statement. They never issued a statement. I was reading a statement today by the SADC, the Southern African Development Countries. They did say that they condemned M23, and also the foreign government supporting them. They didn't say, but that was close to saying something, but they didn't say it. But the East African community, they never said a thing. I think we should challenge them. We should challenge them. They need to say more, because no one wants to be a member if he's going to see somebody, a member state, being slaughtered, being killed, have people being killed, murdered, and they are silent. They're sending troops in Congo, but they act like the MONUSCO people, like they're just observers. And today, the Secretary General Peter Matuki, issued a statement. According to Rwandan media, I did not see that, but Rwandan media reported that Matuki said they want Congo to explain why they kicked out the Rwandan forces, officers who were stationed in Goma, in the army headquarters of the East African Regional Forces. So the Matuki issued a statement, according to Kigali, asking the Congolese government to give explanation why they let those officers go. They never said anything about, they never said a thing about the invasion. They never said a thing about aggression from Rwanda. How do you explain that? That's what I want to hear from you.
Jean-Paul, I understand this statement from the East African Community Executive Secretary.
Mm-hmm.
The presence of the Rwandan officers in the army headquarters in Goma,
mm-hmm.
They were under the East African Authority.
Yeah.
And as such,
I agree.
They had the immunity against unilateral action by Congolese government. So I really don't know why Congo expelled them, but Congo violated.
I think you know. You probably don't know because they never issued a statement. Any detailed statement. But you having these Rwandan officers in the planning, in the planning of the counterattack against people who are. You don't want them to have access to this information. I think I can understand where they're coming from, even though you are diplomatic and that's your background, because it was a decision taken by the president. They should use. They're not defending them. The issue. My question was, you have to attack both. I want you to say that both together. They never addressed the issue of invasion of this aggression by Rwanda government. So why are they surprised when Congo is trying to take the matters in their own hand?
Yeah, instead of Congo expelling these people, the Congolese government should have approached the East African.
Maybe they did. We don't know.
Community.
Yes.
To ask them to withdraw these people instead of declaring them persona non grata.
I understand your point very well. Yes.
This would be the process. So now the Congolese just kicked them out, and that is what triggered the row.
Okay.
Now, concerning the issue you are raising, that the East African community did not condemn Rwanda's invasion. According to me, the East African community accepted to get involved. By now, they have all the information about who is involved in this crisis, about the capabilities of M23, and about M23's sponsor. because we cannot hide it to ourselves. Some Congolese are members, are fighting in the M23, even though we know that the Rwandan government also is involved quite openly, but they claim that they are not involved. You understand? Mm-hmm. And as such, I think the East African community has made a statement, which was not a verbal statement, when they decided to get involved in trying to bring back peace in the region. And as you know, the East African battalions, they have an offensive mandate. They are not peace observers. They came to enforce peace. And the question now to be asked is why they have not been seen enforcing peace. That is the question to ask. I believe that perhaps they are still putting in place their own structures or still deploying. I understand the South Sudan has just sent its battalion. People have serious doubt about the role of the Ugandan battalion. And only the Kenyans have been making a very strong statement that they have come to enforce peace, but they are not seeing doing it.
To me, it seems like they are approaching the situation the same way they approached the Somali situation, and this is not the mandate, I believe.
No, the General Nyaga has said that they have an offensive mandate. They came to enforce peace, not to observe. We have already MONUC observers. We don't. Exactly. We don't need the Eastern Congo does not need another group of observers. So the question is why they are not seen enforcing peace. Could it be that they don't have enough means, the logistics, the weapons, or even the manpower? Because you see, you have just mentioned that Rwanda has just sent 3,000 special forces, but the Kenyan battalion is just 900. The Ugandan might be 100, no, 900 also, the South Sudan also. And this may not be enough to conduct an offensive operation against a more powerful force.
Especially because of they're fighting a government, another country. It's not rebels, as they like to say.
They're not fighting rebels. They're fighting a government, and perhaps they need to be a kind of talks, high-level talks between heads of state to take stock of the situation and decide either to reinforce the manpower or to seek help from whoever can assist. And I would believe that they are going to ask America or Britain or France to come and assist. And I don't see them doing that. And they cannot ask China or Russia to assist because the West would be against that. So I think they are embarrassed. They are embarrassed, and what needs to be done now is to get a high-level consultation to decide what to do. Because if they cannot be there without doing their mandate, it will be better for them to stop being ridiculous and withdraw, and allow Congo to confront the bull, the mad cow. But Jean-Paul, the situation over there is an embarrassment to the entire African continent, because this is the only area where we have this kind of problems. And we cannot blame it on colonial boundaries, because colonial boundaries are everywhere in Africa. So what my assessment would be that this situation must be condemned on the immaturity of the leaders we have in the region. And which would mean that these leaders need to step down and allow new leadership to spring up. That's what I can say.
As we are wrapping up, this is going to be the last, because it's a question from the audience. As you can tell, I was reading some comments at the same time, so I don't have somebody to help me out with that. But I went through some, and I want to thank everyone who did make contribution to this program by sharing your views. We may not read your because this it's meant to be very brief. No, brief. It wasn't brief actually, because the first time. But hopefully next time it will be a little bit, brief, so to allow our English-speaking viewers to get a chance to listen to everything. But someone says, "What do you think Rwanda are so comfortable?" I'm paraphrasing. I think his name is Lilo. He said, "Why do you think Rwandan have been, seem comfortable in all these 30 years, and they don't seem like they won't change?" He used the word, "Why are they allowing themselves to be enslaved?" So what do you think is the reason? Maybe if you have an answer.
Yes, the Rwandans have been beaten very seriously during 1994 crisis. There was a genocide which has impacted all the communities of Rwanda, Hutu and Tutsi, and I understand even the Twa were even impacted much more, because not many of them have been spared. So the Rwanda and the Rwandans, in the nature of us Rwandans, we have a tendency, we tend to obey government orders, and this is part of our culture. Rwandans have been having no say in governance for centuries. Remember, we had a kingdom which was an absolute kingdom. Nobody was able to push back against the king or against the nobles. So this is how Rwandans are. And it is only now when Rwandans have been allowed into schools, and when Rwandans have now some knowledge of power administration in other countries. What we are dealing with now, you and me, what we are talking about now, we cannot find that in Rwanda. So the Rwandans are submissive people, very submissive people, and but they complain in private. They have been denied the opportunity to organize. They have no freedom of opinion. There are no freedoms and liberties in Rwanda. So that is the explanation I can come up with to account for this situation. But those people who are outside, those people who can take to forums like this one, we are asking and we are speaking on behalf of our people. We want our people also to be able to have a say in their government, not to be forced to elect an oppressive government for 30 years.
And lastly, and this is the gist, I mean it's last, what would you ask the government, the US, UK, and all these Western world that are supporting Kagame, what do you want them to do? What can they do to support that cause, the great cause, or to promote a democratic government in Rwanda?
I would encourage these governments, Western governments, to encourage the president of Rwanda to consider stepping down.
That's one. Mm-hmm.
And to allow political process, normal political process, to allow political parties to be free to conduct political activities.
What if he says no?
Because they can also overthrow him. They have
They're not going to do that.
They have been overthrowing government. But
really?
to overthrow such a government would trigger another humanitarian crisis. So it would be a good thing to convince him that it is in his own interest and the interest of his.
He's not going to allow that. I think for me, I'm trying to think different way without dealing with him, what they can do on their part without asking him to do anything. Because I think he's not going to say, I'm going to step up, because you heard him saying that this is my country. They can run their country, I'll run my country. I don't care. He said it's like, we all like stars in the universe. So that's as small as I am. You heard that.
No,
I'm thinking about what they can do here without even involving him, such as maybe withholding, those aid that's supposed to go to democratic, process, such as election. They're going to give money to run election. They're going to.
Yeah, if they withhold aid money, it will hurt more the Rwandans than the government.
What if they use the same strategy that you said, use the USAID to do project, hire people, Rwandan people to work on those projects, and leave him alone?
That would require a change, a paradigm to change the paradigm of cooperation, and that would that would take time. They can use NGOs, but I think high-level diplomacy could prevail on this gentleman to tell him to step down. He has been in power for 30 years. The things he has not been able to do, including introducing democratic processes, he is not going to be able to do those things now that he is aging and becoming an old man, like everybody. It is a phenomenon affecting everybody. So yeah. I think
but my friend, we don't want him to get to the point where he's going to be on a wheelchair. I think that will be too long. We want him gone soon. We don't want him to wait that long. So I think for me, I don't remember what president in the United States history, maybe you will remember, we were here. One of the presidents, he did, I think the US, there were reports that US was arming the rebels somewhere. I think it's Syria. I don't remember where, but someplace. I don't think I'm not really, I think this happened. You can probably search. I do think that there's a place where they arm the rebels. Somewhere.
Yes, the American government would arm rebels if those rebels want to work for the interests of America. Remember really? President Reagan armed the Contras in Nicaragua.
Mm-hmm.
America trained Saddam Hussein before turning against him. America is always behind some rebel activity anywhere in this world.
So if that is the case, what is more American than having legitimate elections, than having democratic government? Those are American values. That should be enough to convince them to say, you should not support this guy because he doesn't stand for your values. He should go. You should actually maybe withhold aid and maybe support those who are trying to get rid of him.
JP, we need to agree that the democratic governance in third world countries does not always add up with American interests.
Yes.
And when they talk about democracy, human rights, blah, blah, at times, it is just talking points. Their interests, most of the time, are different from
American.
From the American, British, Western interests in general. Their interests, strategic interests, are most of the time different from these talking points of human rights, and we need to know that. So the other aspect which needs to be encouraged also is to encourage Rwandans inside the country to be a little bit more assertive. That is, to try to speak up, because they must know by now that nobody is going to speak up for them. So if they don't speak up, then the oppression is going to have very nice days ahead. So Rwandans need to speak up.
That's that's true. They cannot change things for us. They can only support.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. So I do appreciate your contribution, Nsengiyumva Celeste. It was a pleasure to have you and to be my first guest on this English program. So let's keep up this program. I believe that we've been followed. We were being followed by let me tell you the actual number. Other than those who are in chat, but we have like 1,000 people that follow. This is an English program. 1,000 people. It's not really. It's not a bad start. So we need to push this more and more, because I think we need to address these issues in English, and these issues in English. Some Americans, they don't even know the relationship between America and Rwanda. That is, they don't know. Only the government and the FBI and then the Congress know, but the rest, they don't know. So Celeste, again, thank you very, very much. Hope to talk to you soon. Hope to see you back here soon. I appreciate your expertise and your contribution. You have a good night.
Yes,
and
thank
stay
you.
safe, stay warm in Buffalo.
Thank you, JP. Thank you very much for the privilege of being #1 on this on this new broadcast. And so we stay in touch, and
absolutely, thank you.
Going to stay warm and safe in Buffalo. Thank you.
Yes, and it's gonna be crazy tomorrow here as well. So yeah.
Thank you very much, JP.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine. Thank you so much. Good night. And to our viewers, reka nongere mbashimire. Twari kumwe na Celestin Nsengiyumva, twavugaga mu rurimi rw'Icyongereza. Iyi ni gahunda yo kugira ngo ubukangurambaga dukore ntibugarukire ku Banyarwanda gusa, ahubwo bugarukire nako tubujyane no muri aba banyamahanga. Ndabizi ko benshi muri mwebwe namwe muri mu mahanga kimwe nanjye, Icyongereza murakivuga, mwacyanditse, nababonye bamwe muri mwebwe, ntabwo ndi bushobore gusoma ibitekerezo byanyu ko turi kumwe mu kiganiro cy'Icyongereza. Celestin rero yakoze, wakoze Celestin, tuzongera tuganire no mu Kinyarwanda mu bindi biganiro.
Murakoze cyane.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to our viewers. Turasubira nijoro, mwakoze. Bye bye.